Some disappearances leave behind clues, and then there are disappearances that leave behind nothing more than a single running shoe, washed up on a beach, holding inside it all that remained of a woman who once shook an entire nation. She had lived in a multi-million-dollar mansion. Friends, and even her own family, had trusted her with their life savings. But behind that image of success was a secret kept hidden for years, until one morning in November, when her front door closed for the very last time, and no one ever heard from her again. Melissa Caddick was born in 1971, growing up and building her career in Sydney, New South Wales. In public, she was the picture of a successful woman, living in Dover Heights, one of the city's most expensive suburbs, in a mansion worth around $7 million. She ran a company called Malava PTAs Limited, presenting herself as a financial consultant who helped clients grow their investments. Her lifestyle radiated luxury: designer clothes, expensive jewelry, lavish holidays shared regularly on social media. To those around her, especially close friends and family members, Melissa was the very image of absolute trustworthiness. She wasn't a stranger trying to reach her victims. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend who had stood by them for years. This was exactly why none of them ever questioned her when she offered to help manage their investments. She was married to Anthony Coletti, a hairdresser and part-time DJ. Together they had a son, and by all accounts the family lived what appeared to be a happy, stable life for years. From the outside, there was nothing to suggest this wasn't a typical success story from Sydney's upper class. But behind that glamorous facade, a very different truth was slowly being concealed, one that even those closest to her had no idea about. For years, Melissa built the image of a knowledgeable financial expert, always ready with attractive investment tips to share with those around her. She didn't advertise her services openly or loudly. Instead, she approached people through personal relationships, intimate conversations at family gatherings, gentle suggestions between friends. This is exactly what made her scheme so uniquely dangerous compared to ordinary financial scams. Rather than targeting strangers, she exploited trust that had been built over years of personal relationships, something no advertising campaign or cold call from a stranger could ever replicate. Her company, Malava PTA Limited, in reality, held no legitimate financial services license under Australian regulations, a critical detail her investors had absolutely no idea about. The money she received wasn't invested the way she described. Instead, it funded her own extravagant lifestyle, while also paying returns to earlier investors using the money of those who invested later, a financial model known as a Ponzi scheme, where collapse was only ever a matter of time. Throughout this entire period, none of her friends or family ever suspected a thing. To them, Melissa remained the trustworthy woman she'd always been, until everything began to fall apart. Things began to unravel when the Australian Securities and Investments Commission, known as ASIC, opened an investigation into Melissa's financial activities. On 11 November 2020, ASIC investigators, working alongside the Australian Federal Police, arrived to carry out a search warrant at her home in Dover Heights. During the raid, she was told she would need to surrender her passport the following morning, a clear sign that authorities were preparing to prevent her from leaving the country while the investigation continued. Later reports estimated she had taken between $20 million and $30 million from investors, most of them longtime friends and her own family members, none of whom had ever suspected they were being deceived. That night, the house that had once symbolized Melissa's success became the scene of a serious criminal investigation. No one in her family, including her husband and son, could have known these would be the last hours they'd ever see her. In the early hours of 12 November 2020, just hours after the raid, Melissa's son heard the front door close at around 5:30 a.m. He assumed it was his mother heading out for her usual morning run, something she did regularly. But that was the last time anyone in the family would ever hear any sign of Melissa. She left the house without her mobile phone, without any important personal belongings. Items someone planning to flee would normally be expected to take with them. Security cameras in the area were thoroughly reviewed afterwards, but they didn't cover the entire route she may have taken, leaving her exact movements after leaving home a complete mystery. This was the moment Melissa Caddick's story shifted from an ordinary financial fraud case into one of the most shocking missing persons mysteries in modern Australian history. In the weeks and months that followed, a large-scale search was launched. NSW police deployed divers to comb thousands of square kilometres of ocean near South Head, not far from Melissa's home. Meanwhile, theories began circulating widely across Australia. Some believed she had fled overseas to avoid prosecution. Others thought she may have taken her own life under the weight of the investigation. Still others believed something more sinister may have happened to her. The NSW's police commissioner at the time publicly shared his personal view that he believed Melissa had most likely died, even though the case officially remained open due to a lack of conclusive evidence. He also candidly admitted this was one of the highest-profile missing persons cases he had handled in his 30 years on the job. For months, the biggest question wasn't, why did she do it? It was simply this: where was Melissa Caddick, the woman all of Australia was watching? The turning point came on an afternoon in February 2021, when 3 teenagers camping at Boonda Beach, around 500 kilometres south of Sydney, stumbled upon an Asics running shoe lying on the sand. One of them went to throw the shoe in the bin, but when they picked it up, they discovered bone and decomposed tissue inside, a moment that horrified them and led them to immediately alert authorities. Forensic experts later determined it was a human foot that had spent a long period submerged in seawater. Through DNA comparison, using a sample taken from a toothbrush belonging to one of Melissa's relatives, investigators confirmed the foot belonged to Melissa Caddick. This was the first and only physical evidence found in months, but instead of closing the mystery, this discovery opened up a fresh wave of public controversy. Soon after news of the foot broke, some forensic experts spoke out cautiously, warning the public not to rush to conclude that Melissa had died. One expert shared the view that, medically speaking, a person can survive the loss of a foot, and that finding a single body part alone wasn't enough to confirm death. This opinion unintentionally fueled a wave of theories across social media, with many beginning to believe Melissa may have staged the entire disappearance, even deliberately injuring herself to deceive authorities and escape with the money she'd taken. Weeks later, another body part washed up on Mollymook Beach, around 150 kilometres from where the foot had been found. This discovery forced investigators to reconsider their earlier theories, and the investigation entered a far more serious and complicated phase. Throughout the investigation, public and media attention gradually turned to Anthony Coletti, Melissa's husband. One detail that raised questions for many was that he only formally reported his wife missing around 30 hours after she disappeared, a considerably longer gap than is typical in similar missing persons cases. It's important to be clear that this detail was examined closely by investigators, and later by the coronial inquest, as part of a broader, thorough verification process, not as a formal criminal allegation against Mr. Coletti. No criminal charges were ever laid against him directly relating to his wife's disappearance. However, some inconsistencies in his statements were later formally noted and commented on by the coronial inquest, making this an inseparable part of the overall story. For more than 2 years after the body parts were discovered, the case remained in a state of legal limbo. Forensic pathologists were unable to determine the cause of death, time of death, or how Melissa had died, due to the severe state of decomposition of the remains found. This was a uniquely complex legal challenge that experts describe as a no-body, hard-to-prove situation, where the absence of complete physical evidence makes the entire investigative and legal process extremely difficult. During this tense waiting period, Melissa Caddick's story continued to draw widespread interest from the Australian public, becoming the subject of numerous podcasts, television programs, and social media discussions. A rare pop culture phenomenon to emerge from a criminal case. By May 2023, after more than 2.5 years of investigation, the New South Wales Coroner's Court finally delivered its official finding. Deputy State Coroner Elizabeth Ryan stated that, although the exact cause, time, or manner of death could not be determined, the overall evidence showed that Melissa Caddick had died. In explaining this finding, Deputy State Coroner Ryan offered a deeply human and compelling argument. She pointed out that Melissa had been deeply attached to her son, and that if she truly were still alive, it was almost unimaginable that she would never have tried to contact him for so long. This was one of the most emotional details of the entire case. Not DNA evidence, not financial records, but the bond of a mother's love that became the key factor in closing one of Australia's most controversial mysteries. This finding also officially closed the case from a legal standpoint, though many questions about how and why Melissa died remain unanswered to this day. Melissa Caddick's story left an impact reaching far beyond a simple criminal case. It inspired a hit podcast, a television drama titled Vanishing Act, as well as numerous academic articles on forensic oceanography, a specialized field of research studying how marine life interacts with human-related objects, such as shoes or clothing, underwater. For the dozens of victims who had trusted Melissa with their savings, most of them close friends and blood relatives, this story left a double wound. Severe financial loss, combined with betrayal by the very person they trusted most. The case also sparked broader discussions across Australia about the importance of thoroughly checking financial licenses before entrusting money to anyone, no matter how close or familiar that person may be. Melissa Caddick's story, ultimately, isn't simply a financial scam or an ordinary missing persons mystery. It's a profound reminder that trust, no matter how many years it takes to build, can still be exploited in the most sophisticated way by those closest to us. From this story, there are a few things worth reflecting on. First, the most sophisticated financial scammers are rarely strangers who reach out by phone or email. They're often people who already have your trust, friends, family, longtime colleagues. Second, checking someone's legitimate financial license before investing isn't a sign of distrust. It's a basic step of financial protection that everyone should take, even with the people closest to them. Third, an extravagant outward lifestyle doesn't always reflect true financial reality. Sometimes it's actually a warning sign that deserves closer scrutiny rather than simple admiration. Fourth, in complex cases lacking full physical evidence, the legal system can still uncover the truth by considering all relevant factors as a whole, including deeply human elements like family relationships. And finally, if you or someone close to you is considering a financial investment with anyone, no matter how long you've known them, always take the time to verify the information independently. That caution is never wasted, and it may one day help you avoid a financial tragedy you can't undo.